Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Accessibility Talks, or ALI Talks, the monthly virtual meetup where we chat about digital accessibility, inclusivity, and usability. Each month, we invite a speaker to present on a topic, and afterwards, we invite the community to ask questions and participate in the discussion. I'm your host today. My name is Tobias Williams. I'm a software engineer at Red Hat. I use the pronouns he, him, and today I am in a blue t-shirt and yellowy green knit hat. Before we dive into the talk, let's take a moment to remind everyone that our group is committed to creating a friendly and safe environment for all. We expect our participants, speakers, hosts, viewers on YouTube, and those commenting on social media to follow the Accessibility Talks Code of Conduct. This applies to all community interactions, including events, verbal questions, and chat in text channels. You can review the full code of conduct at our website, which is alitalks.com, and the code of conduct URL is /conduct. Our goal is to foster a productive dialogue where participants can share and learn from one another in an atmosphere of mutual respect. We love questions, so this year we're inviting our viewers to submit their questions ahead of time so we can incorporate them into these recording sessions. If you have a question for a speaker, these are the ways in which you can ask them. During a live stream video, type your question directly into the YouTube chat window. If you are not watching live, you can still post your questions, add them to the comment section on YouTube, or share them with us on LinkedIn, Mastodon, or Blue Sky. Just be sure to add us or include the hashtag AliTalks. That's A11yTalks. Direct links to all our social media platforms are listed on our website, and we look forward to hearing from you. I want to give a shout out to our bronze sponsors, Agile Collective and Principal Financial Group. Thank you for the support. And also to our Alley Cat club members who donate monthly to Alley Talks and our one-time donors as well. Thank you so much for your financial contributions. If you want to see your organization recognized as a sponsor of Alley Talks and help fund these amazing meetups, you can visit our sponsorship page at alleytalks.com/sponsorship to learn more. We need your financial support to compensate our amazing speakers and improve our live stream productions to provide the best content possible for this community. If your company uses Benevity for matching donations or gift, you can double your contribution. Just search for Alley Talks. We should appear as Alley Talks by Midwest Open Source Alliance. Okay, today our speaker is Tanveer Khan. He's a senior e-learning technical QA and accessibility testing specialist. That is quite a job title. His presentation is on web versus mobile accessibility, challenges, gaps, and best practices. Okay, Tanveer, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Tobias. Greetings to all the members of A11yTalks community and all the participants who are watching me right now. First of all, I would like to thank the community for inviting me over here and giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my knowledge regarding the accessibilities and the work I do in my daily life. Tobias has already given my introduction. Yes, my name is Tanveer Khan and I am a senior e-learning technical QA and accessibility testing specialist at Arbisoft. Uh, that's a short intro of mine. Moving towards the topic, web versus mobile accessibility, challenges, gaps, and best practices. As you can see on your screen right now, in this topic, we will discuss about the difference between web versus mobile accessibility, their challenges we face during making them accessible, their gaps, and their best practices. Uh, Moving to the slide, you can now see on your screen right now, we have written a line over here, creating inclusive experiences across devices. Now, whenever people think about accessibility, the first thing that came to their mind is they think about the web platform, right? Uh, they think that accessibility is something that needs to be done on accessibility on the website, but it has nothing to do with the mobiles and other platform. But that is not is the case. Uh, the reason is that the users don't stay on one platform. They move across different platforms, like some use laptop, other use tablets and and phones and other wearables. So the fact is, if we only make one environment accessible, that means we are leaving gaps for in another platforms. So that will be a mess, right? That's not the definition of accessibility. In accessibility, the meaning of accessibility, the first meaning of accessibility is that to make everything accessible to every person, not just for some community, not just on one platform. That's why the meaning of creative inclusive experience is that to include everyone. For example, if I give you an example that a person is sitting and using a laptop and he is reading a content on the web, and at the other time he wants to book a ticket on his mobile phone. If we only make one platform accessible, how he's gonna use the mobile and book his ticket? That's the issue over there. So that's mean we are cutting the entire a very big amount of people, big number of people due to the platform we are skipping. So make everything and include everything in those experiences and make those experiences inclusive across many devices. So in the image, you can see that we have provided an image of different platforms, and we are making a bridge between them to make them accessible. So that's mean that everything is accessible and you can move around them. That's our agenda for today. What's ahead, what we will see in this presentation. First of all, we will see that what is accessibility. We will learn about that, what is the meaning of accessibility. Moving forward, we will see mobile accessibility. Next, we will see why compare web and mobile, why we want to compare these two platforms and technologies. We will see some technical differences between them, some technical challenges, common gaps between web and mobile, bridging the gaps. We will see how to bridge those gaps. At the end, we will see some best practices for web and some best practices for mobile. And at the end, we will move toward the Q&A. So moving forward, our first point of accessibility is that if you can see on your screen, accessibility designing building products usable by everyone, including people with disability. That's it. That's accessibility. To develop an app or a product that is usable by everyone, despite of what despite of what disability they have. So make an accessible platforms, making an accessible platform and including all people to use that platforms and or those platform or those products is called accessibility. Next question, if a person asks me that, okay, I want to build an app or a product that should be accessible, what should I do? How can I do this? I will let him know about the guidelines. There are some international organization who identified or suggested some guidelines. They standardized some guidelines and wrote some standards regarding the web content accessibility. The guidelines name is WCAG Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and they are suggested or written by some accessibility organizations. So you can follow them, and by following them, we can make our app accessible. Another thing is cover perception operation. So accessibility works on four major principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robustness. So perceivable means that a person, we have to cover those four principles to make our app or our product accessible. So what is the meaning of these principles? For example, perceiveness. What is perceivable? For example, the person should be able to get the information with at least one of his sense. Like he can get the information or the content by seeing it or by hearing it or by using different kind of assistive technology. That is perceivable. Operable is the meaning of operable is just like to get the interface or to operate the interface, like functionality, the buttons are working or not, or they are functional on keyboard as well, and all these are falls under the principle of operable. Understandable is can I understand it? What you are talking about? For example, if we have a form and we should provide labels or instructions so the person is able to get to know that what is this all about. Like what should I have to do with this form? And if there is a button, we should provide a proper accessible or visible name so the person understand it, what is this all about. And the fourth principle is robustness. Robustness means that the app or the product we created, will it work in the future assistive technologies? So, to make you remember this four principle, I have written some lines. For example, perceivable means can I sense it? Operable means can I use it? Understandable means can I follow it? And robustness means that will it keep working with the assistive technologies of the future or over time? So that's the four principles. Another fourth option, as you can see on your screen, improve usability for all, not just the people with disability. So by accessing or making your products or app accessible, it doesn't mean that the normal people will be affected with this. No, the major work of accessibility is that you have to make it accessible for everyone. And it can, by using those guidelines and those standards and making your app accessible, it means that we are improving the usability for all the members, not just the people with disability. Moving to our next slide, what is mobile accessibility? It is same, just like the accessibility of mobile is same in terms of principles and in terms of accessibility features. For example, designing mobile app usable by everyone, including with disability, same as we have discussed in the web accessibility. Another is, yes, those four principles will also fall over here: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robustness. But the difference is here now at this time the experience is on phone and tablets, not on websites. So moving forward, uses platform accessibility APIs and native features. So unlike the web, the mobile app rely heavily on platform accessibility APIs and on their built-in features. For example, voiceover in iOS and Android talkbacks. So that means that the developers need to properly use native component and expose the right semantics. Uh, Another option tested with real device assistive technologies, voiceover and talkback. That's are the built-in features in mobiles which we can use as assistive technology to read our content or to use them. And it's also important to test on real devices with assistive technologies because simulators and emulators are there, and most of simulators are of good quality. But the fact is they will not reflect the same way the real device is reflecting. So yes, a real device testing is very important in mobile accessibility. So now we are moving toward the main point. Why compare web and mobile? Why we are doing this? What's the purpose behind that? The why web is not enough? So as per the World Health Organization, 1 in 6 people live with a disability. That's a huge number, right? And due to this, we need to make sure that every person should be able to use our apps and products. Uh, it doesn't mean that the stat over here doesn't show that the 1 in 6 people live with disability means that all of them have motor impairments or they are disabled like blind or something. There are a lot of other disabilities as well. For example, if we talk about cognitive disabilities, uh, most of the people nowadays will suffer with any kind of cognitive disabilities like dyslexia, autism, uh, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder. These are all comes under this disability. So that's why they said that 1 in 6 people live with a disability. So mobile, and another thing is mobile is a primary internet device. Another key is that for many users, especially in the emerging markets, the mobile phone is their primary. And nowadays we can say that it's sometimes only device for accessing the internet. So if we do not make these things accessible, so that's when we are cutting off their access entirely. Moving towards another option, web versus mobile accessible behavior are different. Yes, accessibility does not behave the same way across platforms. Web accessibility is largely browser based, while mobile accessibility depends on their operating system. In our case, we know most popular operating system iOS and Android. So that's the difference between them because the websites, the web platforms are browser based, and the mobile platforms are device specific based, or their API based, or their OS based. That's why comparing them, these two is very important to understand where the gaps are and how to design accessibility products as per their needs. So moving to another slide, now we have accessibility on web versus mobile. We will see some of their technical differences. I have written a line over here, same goal, different pathways. What does that mean? So our goal is same. We have to make every app, whether it's on mobile or product, accessible. That's our goal. It's same, but the pathways are different. We have to, cover different pathways to reach to our goal. It's same like if I say that our destination is same, but the pathways toward that destination is different. So that's the technical difference of those two things we are covering over here. For example, if we see on web accessibility, first of the difference is that mostly tested in browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, yes. Web platforms and web products usually get tested on browsers, where on other side, mobile accessibility tested in on OS levels, for example, iOS and Android. They depends on their OS, and web platform depends upon their Chromes and their browsers. Another point is keyboard navigation is key. As we all know that on the web, many user depends on the keyboard only to move around, on the product or on the platform, because most of the people cannot use mouse. That's why keyboard is the key to navigation or to use that platform, is the main thing over here. This means that every interactive element like buttons, links must be reachable with the keyboard by pressing tab, enters or arrow keys. That's why keyboard is the main navigation uh, uh, key of website. And on the other side, yes, we do not use, mostly people do not use keyboard on mobile. They Most of the people use gestures and swipe navigation. So in this case, the swipes and gestures and are the navigation key for mobile. Uh, Assistive technologies like voiceover and talkback let users swipe left or right to move to the content of that. So in web accessibility, point number three, ARIA roles and HTML semantics are the, HTMLs already come with built-in semantics like button, nav, header, which are the built-in native features of mobiles of web platforms. So yes, web accessibility trees works with ARIA roles and HTML semantics, whereas on the other side, the accessibility tree in mobile works with accessibility APIs. For example, if you can see, the UI accessibility is the API for iOS, and Android accessibility, yes, it's an API on which the tree works, or the assistive technology works on these APIs. Moving forward, fix viewport unless responsive in the website. If we don't want to make that platform responsive, then there are some standard size of laptops and different screen sizes. So the breakpoints are not that much with relative to the mobiles ones. So on the other hand, mobile, they use variable screens. Unlike web, where layout can stretch fluidly, mobile device comes in hundreds of variation. Some mobiles have different sizes, other have dot per inch screen. If you know about Retina screens, they have dot. They are made with respect of dot per inch, and there are orientations in mobile as well. So for example, if I give an example of a button that looks large enough on the phone might be tiny on the DPI screen, the dots per inch screen. So that's a little bit difficult to, make content accessible. The button size is accessible on mobile. Uh, Relate with the web accessibility. On web accessibility, it's a little easy, but on mobile it's a little difficult to do this. Assistive technology on the web accessibility are screen readers like JAWS, NVDA, voiceovers, and this and that. And screen readers on mobile accessible, they have talkback, voiceover, magnifiers, and switch control, which we can use and which we can use to run our content on the products. So moving forward, uh, okay, just give me a second. Moving forward, we have another slide, technical, as we can see, technical challenges for web. First of our options is when developer use, you can see on the screen right now that non-semantic HTML is accessibility tree issues. Non-semantic HTML elements create accessibility tree issue. Why? For example, when developers use non-semantic elements like div or span for things that are actually buttons or links or headings, they break how the browser assistive technology build accessibility tree. For example, semantic HTML elements like buttons, nav, man, headings level like H1 to H6, they have built-in features to run on screen readers and to be added in the accessibility tree. But on non-semantic side, using div or span, they don't have any built-in role or behavior by default. So if you use this, the screen reader will say it like invisible or will say unlabeled or something like this, which will confuse the user who is using assistive technology. Another point, focus order mismatch. Focus order mismatch, that focus is very important to use, because if the focus does not match with the visual flow of the content, the keyboard user will get confused and he might get lost in the content, that he will think, where am I right now? For example, if we press the tab, the order might jump unexpectedly in the DOM, and if it is not structured properly. So focus and keyboard are the two main things in accessibility. Another option is related to ARIA misuse, wrong hole exposure. Using incorrect ARIA roles at different places can create confusion and will break the structure of the tree. For example, adding ARIA roles incorrectly can confuse assistive technology, like if you use a div instead of a button and not making it operable on the keyboard, so that will be a mess. Another example, if you use a role link using a div and do not add an href attribute. So instead, what will happen? The link will not work. It will be displayed on the screen, but it will not work. Another example, we can take it as using ARIA hidden attribute on some interactive elements. Developer hide a visible button or form field from 80 by mistake. So what will it impact? Impact will be the screen reader can't access it even though it's on screen. The user will not be able to see it on screen who is using the assistive technology, because the developer has used ARIA hidden true on that. So moving forward, dynamic content without ARIA life. For example, uh, if we have an app, if we have a form and we do not use an ARIA live on there. For example, some updates content updates dynamically. If you are filling a form and in the form, when the user clicks on submit button, there is a pop-up or a modal usually appear on the screen. But if we do not use ARIA Live, the content will not be read immediately by the assistive technology. So what will happen? The impact will be that user miss critical updates, messages like error messages or form feedbacks. Another point is contrast issue in responsive layout. When layout shifts for different sizes, like the screen is large now, the screen is small, it depends on the user which screen he wants to use. And if we don't make the color contrast as per the standards or as per the guidelines of accessibility, what will happen? the color contrast will be reduced, and it will cause that users with low vision or color blindness will struggle to read the content. For example, if a light gray button with white text looks readable on desktop, but when the screen resizes, it will become hard for it because the standards are not followed as per the guidelines. So those are some technical challenges of web. Now we will move towards some technical challenges of mobile: missing label, accessibility labels, and construction. So what does it mean? On mobile, every interactive elements like button icons, images must have a clear, accessible name so that the assistive technology will know that what is this component is all about. For example, iOS use accessibility label attribute and Android use content description, as you can see on the screen. And if labels are missing, screen reader like voiceover or talkback just they will just say button or unlabeled. And what will happen? It will leave the user guessing. Example, if I give you an example, if we have a search icon without a label, the voiceover will just say a button. But with label, if we provide them with uh, a descriptive label, the voiceover will say search button. So the user will get to know that, yes, what is this button is about, or what am I going to click. So impact will be that the blind and low vision users cannot understand the purpose of the control if there are no labels. So that will impact a huge user base. Moving another, missing or unclear semantic roles in native components. Just as we talk in web, their semantics like using HTML semantics in web. In mobile, we also have to use some clear semantics. Missing clear semantic would result in, you know, that they will result in extra work, will result in unaccessible components. For example, if a developer use custom views or override native component without exposing the correct role, screen reader must just say that view or text instead of the intended role. So it will not get the role of the component. So that's why use native components or define their roles and do not use unclear semantics. Just in the web, we say that if you want to create a button, use the button attribute. If you want to create a heading, use the H1 attribute. Do not use like just make the text size bigger and bold it so that it will be a heading. No, for assistive technology, if you want to call it as a heading label level 1, you have to name it as H1. So touch target too small or inconsistent in mobiles. The biggest issue is related to touch targets. Touch targets, the developer usually make the touch targets so small. So whenever the screen size shrinks, it is very difficult for them to click, especially for the people with motor impairments. If they have shaky hands, it will be very difficult for them. So at this stage, we have to use as per standard in mobiles. We have a 44 by 44 standard size, density pixel size, and the button should be consistent throughout your platform or product. Ignoring OS settings. Nowadays, we all know that platforms of mobile provide some accessibility feature. They're built-in accessibility features, right? If we talk about larger text, if we talk about high contrast mode, the mobile OS system provides it in their built-in. If the developer of the app do not honor these, what will happen? So that means they break the user's chosen accessibility environment. For example, if a user select font size, a larger font size on his mobile, and if the developer of the app ignores it, what will happen? User will still see a tiny fixed size text, and it will be unreadable for low vision persons. And if we talk about dark mode, if the OS is providing a dark mode, and the developer of the app misses or ignore the theme of his product, and he only uses one theme as light or do not use dark theme. What will happen? The user will struggle with glare, poor contrast, or unreadable text. So to note the to work as per the OS setting is as much necessary as doing another work in that. Poor contrast, point number five, a poor color contrast in high motion or small UI elements. We are talking it in the previous session, in the previous slide, we talked about it as well that uh, weak contrast become nearly impossible to read for the real world conditions, like if a person is at the sunlight or if he has low vision, then it will be very difficult for him to read because the contrast is very weak. So in all platforms, we have to work a lot on contrast of the text or the interactive elements. Now we will see some common gaps related to it. What are the common gaps between these two, web and mobiles? First of all, the main most important common gap is related to testing tools. In web browsers, uh, on web, most of the QA rely heavily on the browser plugins or extensions. There are a lot of extension for web accessibility testing. For example, X, Lighthouse, Wave, and or toolkit. For mobile, they are less common. There are two, I think, not even two or three extensions or apps that support accessibility for mobile. So what will be the issue? So many issues never get caught in mobile. The reason is that we have a very low automation, accessibility automation in mobile as compared to the web. Another we can see over here is design handoff accessibility, often designed for desktop only. Designs are often optimized for desktop first. So when handed off for mobile accessibility, details like touch targets, gestures, or voiceover hints are missing because the developer only worked on the website, not on the mobile side. So that will be the that's the common gap between these two. Another option you can see over here is platform guidelines. A web team knows about VCAG, but mobile team needs both VCAG and OS specific guidelines. For example, in iOS, there are HIG. You can see our screen. iOS HIG means Human Interface Guidelines. And in Android accessibility, they have their own framework for that. Those guidelines are related to the VK guidelines, but the developer of the OS just, uh, redefined it in their own language as per their settings. For example, if I take one guideline of compliance. If I remember right now, let's talk about the text resize. The guideline says that text must be resizable up to 200 without loss of content. That's the guidelines of VCAT. So at this same guidelines, the HIG in iOS says that use dynamic type so text scales with users predefined sizes. And in Android guidelines, they just redefined it in a way that support system, font scaling, and avoid clipping of over or overlapping. Avoid clipping and overlapping. So these three statements are same, but they have defined in their platform so that the developer know will know more about their OS settings, not about the guidelines. So that's why they are a little different. So the developer of the mobile should have the knowledge of VCAG as well HIG and Android accessibility. Another the point if you see over here is real device testing often missed. As I said earlier, simulators can't replicate real screen readers, magnify or switch control behavior. So skipping physical devices in testing means missing critical accessibility gaps. And on the other hand, low color contrast in key UI elements across both platforms, designer often miss low contrast issue, especially in icons, placeholder, or subtle UI elements. So what will happen? It will hurt users with low vision. So that's a common gap between these two. Now we will see how to bridge those gaps. How can we, yes, those are the common gap, but how can we bridge them? How can we resolve them? First option, if you can see over here, apply VCAG plus platform specific guidelines, both of them. Uh, VCAG give us the foundation, but mobiles also require platform-specific guidelines. Like Apple's provide human interface guideline and Android provide accessibility standards. On the other hand, cross-train, the another option is point is cross-train design, development, and QA. Now that's the main thing. I have seen that there is lack of sessions or knowledge sharing session between cross teams. So our point is over here that we have to make an environment where cross teams like design, development, and QA team members come and they can train together or train them together. Now that's the work or the role of accessibility specialists to tell them about those guidelines, tell them about those issues, and train them as per the guidelines of VCAG, OS, and other things. So, and in designer mode, if we designers plan inclusive layouts and color contrast from the start. Accessibility is not just a developer's job. Designers play a critical role in planning inclusive layouts, ensuring color contrast and touch targets, and they should use it from the beginning. There is a term that accessibility shift left. What does it means? Accessibility shift left is to start accessibility testing as early as possible. That's the meaning of accessibility shift left. And accessibility should be started from the designer designing phase so that it will be easy to cover those issues like contrast and this and that, touch targets and small in the designing phase. And developers should integrate semantic structures. They should not use non-semantic uh, structures, and the ARIA roles should be reduced. Do not use extra roles or workarounds related to ARIA, and developers should use the accessibility APIs. So because on the mobile, it runs on the accessibility API, so developer should know about them and use his structure for creating an app or product or anything as per those APIs. And QA test with assistive technology and real device early. QA team must go beyond automated tools. Automation or automated accessible testing is not enough. We have to test with assistive technologies like voiceover, talkback, and also real device needed. So the thing is that real world scenarios will only be accomplished with the real world devices, and manual testing is nearly mandatory as automation testing. Finally, the most important step, which I think I have not identified in throughout this journey of ours, include user with disability in testing. We have seen that in many teams, people do not use a disabled person in their testing. But as per my understanding, they can surface issues that the team often miss and give a real feedback because he is facing that team. We are only assuming, but that person is facing those issues. So the thing is, he will give a better feedback, a real world feedback on usability. Now moving forward, we will see some best practices for web and mobiles. Uh, First of all, the structure is everything. If you have a good structure, then it means most of the work of accessibility is done. I will guess like 50 to 60% work is done if your structure is good. Use semantic HTML, headings, landmarks, and only use ARIA when native HTML is not enough. So only use at that time ARIA or non-semantic elements. If that is not the case, then use semantic HTML elements. Built-in landmarks, we have to use landmarks for the section, for example, header, nav, main, footer, aside. So the person who is using the screen reader will know that at which place of the screen I am at right now, whether I am in the main section, I am at the footer, I am at the header. So that's why the landmarks are important. Second, the option is provide keyword-friendly navigation and visible focus states. All navigation should be keyword-friendly. User must be able to tab through content in a logical order. And visible focus state make it clear that where the user are on the page right now. The third option, maintain consistent layout and contrast ratios across pages. So consistency is very important. Changes in structure or contrast between pages confuse users with cognitive or visual disability. So maintaining consistent patterns is will help usability, and that falls under the compliance of VCAC, that consistent navigation and consistent identification is very important in your layouts, because the user will know with that with these things that where I am right now, or it will make the usability easier for them. Moving forward, tests across on different browsers and screen readers. For example, always test across environments with different environments. Automated tools are not enough. Screen readers like JAWS and NVIDIA and VoiceOver behave differently. And we have seen over across platforms that sometimes the screen reader on Windows doesn't work like completely same as Mac VoiceOver do on the Mac OS, the voiceover do on the Mac OS. So testing on multiple browser helps uncover different issues of the semantic structure because they behave differently. So that's the thing related to web. Now, best practices for mobile. Expose label role by accessibility APIs, iOS and Android. Uh, Accessibility best practices looks a bit different in mobile. First, always expose labels and roles through the platform's accessibility. In APIs or in iOS, they use UI accessibility APIs, and in Android, they use accessibility services, and they have their own frameworks related to that. This makes sure that assistive technology can read and interact with elements as intended. Uh, for example, whenever you build a mobile app, the OS provide an accessibility API, and that accessibility API will be used by the assistive technology like screen reader to run your product, your product structure to read it. And if you don't expose the labels and roles, the screen reader won't will not announce them correctly. On the other hand, support gesture navigation and focus order for assistive tech. Uh, Remember, mobile users rely heavily on gestures or swipe navigation. The focus order needs to follow a logical path so screen reader user don't get lost in the UI. So focus and swipe and gesture navigations are very important in mobile. Respect system settings. Yes, the developer should respect user systems. Things like dynamic text size, dark mode, or color inversion are built in accessibility features. Our app should adopt automatically rather than breaking the layouts. And another test with real device and 80 voice over talkback switch access. Finally, do not rely on emulators simulators. This is my findings until now so far. Do not rely on emulators or automation. Always test on real device with real assistive technologies like voiceover, talkback, and switch access. That's where you will catch the real world scenarios by using manual or manual testing. You can do manual, and you can use different assistive technologies. You can use different magnifier switch controls. So that's you will get different types of issues. So in this way we can uh, uh, fulfill our accessibility or accessibility standards in mobile as well as web. So those two which I have shown you right now are the best practices for web and mobile. Moving forward, so that's all from my side. That's all I got in my data bank, and thank you for giving me the time and listening to me.
Thank you. That was awesome. I'm glad we've exhausted your data bank.
That's not issue.
Okay, so we have some questions. You should be able to see it up on the screen, but I'll read it for the benefit of our viewers. How do you approach the challenge of maintaining accessibility standards when dealing with third-party libraries or components that may not be inherently accessible for both web and mobile?
So how would I approach the challenges of maintaining accessible standards? The thing is that facing, as I have told you in my presentation as well, the third-party libraries, they're not inheritedly like they do not focus really on accessibility features when they create a library. So that's the thing. That's why the main challenge is your question, right? No, because the third party will not follow those standards which we discuss right here. So for both web and mobile, I have I assume that, and I emphasize everyone to use built-in apps, or if you are using third-party libraries, you have you can switch the third-party libraries or components, because in this way you will get the real world issues. So depending on only one third party library or components, I don't know the developer of the third party library. Maybe they even don't know anything about the about accessibility. So first, always make sure the library is, or the component is developed by a developer who is know something about accessibility. And if that's not is the case, it's difficult to get these information. So on the other side, what you can do is cross testing. Use cross testing or different libraries across that.
That's a good point. I think one thing that I always tell developers when we're in thinking about libraries is if they have a README or something, just control F for the word accessibility. If they don't mention it, then chances are that we're kind of in trouble. So um, yeah.
Yes, that's the issue. That README, the guidelines, the checklists are very much important for giving it to your users or database.
Cool, thank you. All right. The next question, what are the most common screen reader behaviors that QA teams should be testing for specifically on mobile, and how would they differ from something you might be looking for on desktop?
So yes, QA team should be testing specifically if we talk about mobile. On mobile, as I have mentioned earlier, we cannot use keyboard. Mostly people use the swipe navigation, and that's the main thing. Whenever you are using a screen reader, you have to use it with the swipe or the gesture and move around in a logical order and check that if the screen reader is able to read the content. Whereas on the website, the tabbing key is the key. It's the most important key. Using the tab index, using tab. My mentor used to say that once I asked him what is accessibility in web, he said tab. So you have to tap through different on the screen. So on mobiles, the difference between both of these is, on web, it's easy to press the tab, but on mobiles, it's a little bit difficult because the touch targets are not consistent. The content is not consistent. They are not in a logical order. So you have to move around with your fingers or make you have to remove the inconsistency and different types of things. So that's what QA team faces during the testing on mobile or desktop.
All right, what are some of the most common ARIA pitfalls you see in responsive web design, and do those things appear differently on desktop and mobile?
Okay, so ARIA is something that's related to the web. It has to do something with the websites, with the HTMLs. Using ARIA, like I have mentioned, using ARIA Live for your dynamic content to be read, so that your assistive technology should read it. Using ARIA label, whenever there is no visible label, you can use ARIA label for button as well, so that assistive technology like screen reader will read the ARIA label. In terms of mobile don't move like mobile apps doesn't cannot be created with ARIA. They don't use ARIA. They use their accessibility features. The accessibility traits, the accessibility. I have shown you two or three that content description. The content description is like the ARIA label. So in the web, if you are using ARIA role, ARIA label on the mobile, it's redefined in content description in Android, and in iOS, it will something like accessibility or content component label, something like that. So there's the different things. I don't think there are some common areas which can be used in responsive web design or in differently. They have different. Their usage is same, but they have different names as per the HIG or accessibility standards.
Awesome. Today I learned. That's great. Okay, so beyond the standard accessibility testing tools, are there any unique debugging techniques or development side practices you recommend for catching some mobile specific accessibility issues, such as those related to like gestures and stuff like that?
Yes, that's where I said that use the manual testing is as much important as automation testing, because by tools you cannot find many features. There are a lot of false positive or another thing using automation. So the things, the most common issue we find during manual testing or by mobile specific accessibility. First of all, I talk about the touch target size. There are a lot of inconsistency between them. The standard size is 44 by 44 and density pixel in mobile, and on the app and on the website it's like about 24 by 24 pixel. So, and the most common issue we find is related to the tabbing order and the focus order, and uh, another issue most commonly found in manual testing is related to the focus appearance. Focus appearance is, the border outside the interactive element. So that's most important, because if their contrast is low, it will be difficult or it will be like itchy for the person who has some kind of disability. So these are some issue which is more good to be find in manual testing instead of or using accessibility testing tools and other. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Given the rapid evolution of technology, what emerging tech like augmented reality devices or voice interface do you see being the next major accessibility frontier, and what challenges do you think they will present? I'm guessing some of these things won't even be web or mobile, but like what kind of challenges do you anticipate as we move beyond traditional technologies?
So first of all, if we move from our traditional technologies, then we will have to redefine our standards of accessibility, because all those standards are related to the web and mobile and all those augmented reality like VR, virtual reality, and voice interfaces. Uh, we have to make different, and those organizations will have to work day and night on creating new standards for them, because as the market evolves, as the market changes, technology changes, we have to switch to new standards, we have to switch to new guidelines, we have to move, so we have to remove our pesticide paradox in testing. We have to
Yeah.
update our testing, and not even update, those things will require a major upgrade,
Hmm.
and that will be a challenge for both web and mobile, because in the coming era, I don't think people will know what is web and mobile. They will move toward the virtual reality and voice interfaces and other
Yeah.
things. So my simple answer is that we have to redefine our guidelines if we are moving towards augmented realities and voice over interfaces.
All right. Thank you, Tanveer. That I'm very excited to share this with my colleagues. Like this was a great presentation. I personally learned a lot. I deal with accessibility every day, and I've learned a lot from this talk. So I'm excited to share this out. So thank you for coming and
That's
presenting.
great. That's great. Thank you so much.
All right, and we're always looking for speakers and new voices in the accessibility community. We make a conscious effort to include marginalized groups in tech for our speaker lineup. If you are interested, please reach out to us at team@alitalks.com. And if you have IAAP certifications, Ali Talks speakers and attendees receive professional development credits through IAAP for your continuing education. We are also looking for feedback. So if you have opinions about how we did, please let us know at our website, alitalks.com/feedback. We accept both positive and constructive feedback. If you'd like to see format updates or anything like that, please let us know. We are always looking to refine our process. And if you want to follow us, our YouTube channel is likely where you're watching this. Our other socials are listed on our site and also on the screen here. Everything is A11yTalks. Thank you for attending. We look forward to seeing you next time, and we appreciate Tanveer for coming out today. Thank you.